Hey everyone, it's me, Astrei, and I'm back after my iconic move known as posting a banger and then disappearing for 4 months. It is actually my summer break now, which means it's been a full year since I posted a video titled How I Learned Japanese in 1 year and how you can do it too. Totally not clickbait, by the way. For those who are not aware, 僕は2年間に日本語を習っていて、1週間前大学の日本語201という最上級クラスを卒業した。2023年に日本語で何もわからなかったんだけど、時間が経つれて、つまり670日ぐらいの後で、大切なことのほとんど全てが分かって、たとえ僕が完璧に話せないけど、10分に話せると思う。Last year, I never thought I would be making a follow-up, but the more I studied and improved, the more I noticed that the advice and tools I suggested in my previous video are not necessarily wrong, but definitely outdated. So today, I will go over my tips, tricks, studying methods, and what I would have done differently so you can learn Japanese faster and better than I ever did. Everything that you're about to hear is not coming from an expert in the Japanese language. I'm not a professor or am JLPTN1 certified or anything of the sort. I am simply a student wanting to help out other students. Learning Japanese can be a little scary when you're starting out, and for us intermediate learners, you can definitely feel lonely at times, as most members in the community have just started studying and the rest have a god complex and eat, think, and breathe Japanese. That's why I think it's worth mentioning that learning Japanese is not a race and it's very important to have fun while doing it. So please consider this advice as completely subjective. I'm joking, by the way. I studied with a Genki 2 textbook and therefore everything I say is not an opinion but a fact. We're part of the secret elite conspiracy theorists have warned you about. And before we start, did you know that only 1.2% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed? If you enjoy my content and would like to see more, consider subscribing. I have been writing a ton of long-form video essay scripts that you don't want to miss. Those of you who like my deranged schizo posting and horror videos will have a blast very soon. I also want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to Crackers with Ches, Vlad, George Gonzalez 578, The Teapot Guy, and Not Dear, aka Michael Politan, because all of these insane beautiful people are the first ever to donate to the Astrei channel. With the help of these amazing souls, I am able to get better equipment and make better videos. So I would like to thank you all for helping me fulfill my silly dream of making YouTube videos a reality. If you'd like to help out the channel or want to be shouted out during my next scripted video, consider donating. Any form of support helps, even if it's a simple like or a nice comment. You are all the reason that I am not homeless. So let's start from the beginning. Astrei, what are some of your favorite tools when learning Japanese? First, Jisho is my favorite Japanese to English dictionary. There's not a single lesson that goes by when I don't use it. Hashtag not sponsored, but Jisho is a completely free website/app with a ton of features that make it really convenient and easy to use. Naturally, it provides the translation and definition of a word or the kanji's onyomi and kunyomi readings, but it also has a short animated sequence to teach you the stroke order of each kanji so you can write them properly. I personally adore this feature. I really struggle when learning new kanji with static images and great outlines, so having these short clips in the app saves you so much time. Also, please, for the love of God, don't use Google Translate. If you have ever taken a foreign language class, your professor has absolutely deterred you from using it. There is always some form of nuance that gets lost during translation. The Japanese language itself often omits pronouns or even verbs quite often due to them being implicit in conversation, but Google Translate naturally lacks the context. So it shits out wonky and wrong translations most of the time. Only use it for very unimportant things like, I don't know, translating a tweet about Von Like on Saz. Now, for vocabulary practice, most people will recommend using an app called Anki. Studying your Anki flashcards for 10 minutes every day seems like a really good way to acquire new vocabulary in short quantities during long periods of time. But if I'm being entirely honest, I don't really use Anki unless I really have to. A lot of people praise the app for being efficient and effective, and if repetition is key for you to absorb new vocabulary, then this is the app for you. But in my case, I get distracted very easily, so forcing myself myself to use a flashcard app every day feels like torture. Studying with flashcards feels contained in a bubble, leading me to study in autopilot, which shouldn't happen. But hey, if it works for you, then that's great. If not, I'd recommend you another app. I actually prefer to use Quizlet when learning new vocabulary. Quizlet provides that same flashcard functionality that Anki offers, but it also has a built-in feature to make quizzes for you. It uses those flashcards to make short mix and match, translation, rewriting, and multiple choice exercises. You could say that Anki is more to the point, but I find Quizlet to be more engaging, which naturally takes longer, but I don't think choosing to do things via the fast route necessarily means that you will do them effectively or correctly. It is also worth noting that, despite being able to be downloaded for free, both Quizlet and Anki are made to be paid for services. I don't think neither of the app's limits are particularly obtrusive, but if you prefer longer study sessions that take place less frequently rather than frequent short lessons, then that might be an issue. Switching gears a little bit, this following tool is actually not an app, but a device. I got my iPad back in Black Friday last year, and I can say that even if I don't use it much, it has made my learning Japanese experience so much easier. For some reason, most devices that have an option to add a Japanese keyboard are incredibly choppy and they're very uncomfortable to use. The Japanese typing option that you can use on computers running on Windows is really bad. Most of the time, they suggest really obscure kanji over the common ones that you're trying to use. They don't display the ones you need altogether, or have issues with handling the kanas. The Japanese typing option on iPhone is difficult to use, but it's mostly because we're not used to seeing keyboards like this. Therefore, texting takes ages. But the iPad Japanese keyboard is actually excellent. I am not sure how the iPad does it, but all of the kanji/kana suggestions it provides feel completely natural and make sense in context. I never feel swamped when trying to type, or if I downright forget the phonetical writing of a kanji, instead of having to open up a dictionary on your phone, you can just use the Apple Pencil to physically write the kanji down, which means that you can write messages in your iPad as if it was a notebook. Not to be a Mac fag, yes, I can say that word, but the iPad, keyboard, and pencil are just so good. I fully understand, however, that it is on the more expensive side, but if you're willing to save up every other payday, you will not regret this purchase at all. Now, there are many different ways of studying and immersing, but here are some of my favorites. Just try to keep in mind that what works for me might not necessarily work for you, and it is therefore important for you to experiment and play around with them. We're all different, this is simply how I just prefer to study. The first learning method that I want to recommend is, of course, taking a Japanese class. I currently use the Genki 2 textbook, but have completed Genki 1 as well. I also like to use a notebook to write both personal and academic studies. Even if you prefer to study with a PC or an iPad, it is scientifically proven that your brain has an easier time forming connections when putting the pen down on paper and writing, which is essential to make your hands get used to writing the language, which is completely different to the Roman alphabet. Here is my handwriting on my first day of learning, and here are my current notes. I know that saying, just go to school, might be an obvious form of advice, but I feel that the community has definitely stigmatized this method in some way. I sometimes see figures in the community outright discouraging learners from taking classes because they're expensive and potentially waste time. Which, don't get me wrong, these are completely valid takes, but if I'm being honest, I would always choose to take lessons with a teacher rather than being self-taught. Yes, I understand this is not a possibility for everyone, but in my own experience, having started as a self-taught learner, I struggled a lot with putting the basics together. Even if you're very disciplined, I do think that learning from an outside source is essential because languages are inherently about connecting with people. Professors, especially native ones, can provide corrections or cultural notes of interest that no YouTube video or pre-recorded online course can provide on the spot. I used to live in a pretty ethnically homogeneous country before moving here, so like I said, I understand that taking IRL classes is simply not possible sometimes. But if you're in a multicultural country like the US or Canada, I'd recommend you to take advantage of it and join one. It is very healthy and stimulating to be able to relate to people who struggle with learning just as much as you are. You'll definitely feel more motivated, and with the help of others, you can push yourself a little further to improve even more. Some of you might not be aware, but English isn't my first language. From the age of 5 to 17, I took English classes in school. Despite this, and as far as I know, out of everyone in my generation, I'm the only one who has moved and worked abroad. So was there anything that I did differently to achieve a native-like level from a young age? I believe so. A lot of what I considered entertainment as a kid inadvertently helped me study. So as soon as I started to marry the worlds of education and entertainment like I did when I was younger, I genuinely saw incredible amounts of progress. This This is a pretty short and simple study method, but light immersion is really good for both beginners and intermediate learners. Watch YouTube videos or TikToks in Japanese that are subtitled in English. I personally really like watching the Shibuya interviews by Tokyo Sims or the ones by Takashi. If you're a beginner, try to link the words in Japanese to their English counterparts, and if you're intermediate, try to watch the interview without looking at the subtitles to see how much you understand. When I was in the 5th grade, my best friend and I used to draw little comic strips of a weird Zelda X Adventure Time fanfic we had, and I'm not really sure why, but we wrote every other comic completely in English. So, because I still love creative writing, I like to use an app that we have already discussed on this channel. I think Character AI is an amazing tool to study Japanese. Why are you bullying me? I'm right! In Character AI, you can talk to chatbots based on any character from fiction that you can think of about any topic whatsoever. You can try to have conversations with them in Japanese. So, because I'm literally Ryan Gosling, I can proudly say that I have practiced Japanese with my favorite deadbeat hyena husband. Make sure to ask the bot to engage exclusively in Japanese, and then select a topic for you to practice together. For example, you can prompt them to ask you questions about college life, jobs, places you want to visit, and more, which develops your coherent communication skills in written form. In the case that you want to receive feedback or how to improve, just ask them and they will provide it. Despite having some Japanese friends, both online and in real life, I'm still a very slow typer when using my phone, so to not make them wait 2 hours between messages, I choose to practice with these chatbots. The app also offers a voice call option where you can actually speak to the character of your choosing. Very dystopian, I know. But it doesn't really work if your goal is to practice another language. I tested this function with my beautiful wife Makima, and most of the time that I spoke in Japanese, the app would automatically translate it back into English, leave half of the message in Japanese, or think I was speaking Korean or some sort of Cyrillic language. My beautiful husband Legoshi, on the other hand, only spoke to me in Spanish. Legoshi-kun, gomen, nihongo de hanashite mo ii?
Por supuesto. Siéntete libre de hablar en el idioma.
So, I do not recommend the voice call option. Literally speaking to angry chats on Roblox might be more effective. My third studying technique might make you think that I'm fucking with you, but bear with me. One of the best ways to practice and acquire vocabulary is as simple as listening to some music. Music is a big part of my life, and low-key the reason that my hearing is so shitty. There's 2 ways that you can study with music. The first one is choosing a song in Japanese and listening to it with your full attention. See how many words you're able to recognize, and then look up the lyrics to see if you're able to recognize anything else. If you're able to understand most words in a sentence, except for maybe 1 or 2, look them up on Jisho and write them down as well. You can also listen to the song while comparing both the translated and untranslated lyrics at the same time to spot words of interest faster. This is how I learned that Zangoku means cruel, Tenshi means angel, and Teise means thesis. Can you guess which song I'm possibly talking about? The second way to study with music is to translate songs in your native language into Japanese. This studying method is a little more advanced as you do need to be aware of basic grammatical structures and conjugations, but if you already know them, I heavily recommend trying it out. It really pushes you to think outside of the box because you need to sing something coherent that maintains the original meaning of the song without it sounding bad. It is challenging, but a lot of fun. Lately, I've been listening to Baile Inolvidable by Bad Bunny, and whenever I'm feeling a little too bored, I start singing Wasurerare nai odori by Warui Kousagi. Or when I'm showering, I quietly sing Natsujikan no Kanashisa by Lana Del Rey. And finally, my third technique is the most complicated one, but by far my favorite. I am gonna drop a truth nuke. You can learn Japanese by watching anime. Yes, I know that you've watched a million videos telling you not to do this, but I don't think that there is a method that I like more than this one. Now, bear with me. Watching anime to study is completely different than watching anime for leisure. If you plan on doing this, you absolutely need to lock in. To do this, you need to be at least on an intermediate level. Log on to Netflix or a totally legal streaming website and watch a slice of life anime targeted to young viewers. These shows guarantee that the vocabulary that you listen to is at least usable in everyday speech and not inappropriate. I watched the entirety of an anime called Kotaro Hitori Gurashi exclusively in Japanese, and pretty surprisingly, I would say that I was able to understand between 50 to 60% of it. In this anime, we follow a boy named Kotaro who lives by himself, along with his neighbors, a depressed and tired manga artist, a bubbly and easygoing young woman, and a divorced yakuza. Because in this anime we see the gang doing mundane things like going grocery shopping, renting an apartment, or watching TV, I feel like I learned so much useful vocabulary about everyday life. To successfully do this studying technique, I'd recommend the following. Select an anime like this one, choose the Japanese subtitles option, and press play. You are going to pay as much attention as you can to what you're hearing while following along the show itself and its subtitles. Try to see how much you're actually understanding in a scene. Who is talking? What are they talking about? If they said a word that you don't know, nor recognize the kanji for it, can you figure out what it means based on context? Simply by associating what you're hearing to what you're seeing, you can learn and understand words you've never heard before. I think that as long as you understand 65 to 80% of what is being presented to you in a scene, you do not have to worry. But if it is any less than that, pause the show and carefully read the subtitles. And using another device, look up the kanji you can't recognize and write it down in a notebook. I like to write the kanji along with its translation, but sometimes a short sentence using it can be very helpful too. Once you're done, replay the scene to see how much of your understanding has improved, and repeat this process for every episode. At some point, you'll see that these previously unknown words have become part of your repertoire as soon as you start spotting them without much effort. In my case, I didn't know words like tsukinau, hoya, or omukai. But since they pop up so much in the show, they naturally integrated themselves into my vocabulary. Keep in mind that some scenes will be extremely difficult to understand, even with the visuals and subtitles. I remember there is a scene in the show, no spoilers, where a supporting character lifts his shirt to reveal some severe scars on his abdomen and then explains his backstory. I was like, what the fuck? I did not see that coming. So I had to pause the episode and really grind my way into somewhat understanding it, but I promise it is worth it. I think in these scenarios, because the vocabulary might be too advanced, getting a general gist is enough. I know some may argue that learning Japanese with anime can really fuck up your pronunciation because no one in real life speaks like that, it is too exaggerated or too vulgar, which are completely valid takes, don't get me wrong, and I would agree with them. But I'm trilingual. And I learned English mostly by watching early PewDiePie screaming at barrels, Smosh making dick jokes, and Filthy Frank eating a cake made out of hair and then puking it out. Everything I watched was loud, exaggerated, and obnoxious. But do you hear me having an over-the-top 2012 cringy accent? No, I'm aware that my English might not be the best, but it is good enough to be on the Dean's Honor Roll, so what can I say? I think that as long as you're aware that the voice acting in Japanese is very theatrical and people in real life don't speak like that, there's no need to worry. I really enjoy this sort of study method, whether it be with anime or with video games in Japanese. I could make a full-length video trying out this experiment again, just to go more in depth, so let me know if that sounds interesting. So that's about it. These are the Astrei certified tools, tips, and tricks to learn Japanese. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, as well as sharing your tools and study techniques in the comments down below. Remember, Japanese is something that takes a lot of time to learn, and your journey will have its ups and downs, but I promise it is worth it and it's all about you having a good time. I have a lot of videos planned that are coming soon, so please be on the lookout for that. I believe the people who have been following me since my Deltarune phase, and those who like existentially dreadful horror, will have a blast very soon. I just want to thank you for all the support my videos are getting. We're stupidly close to 5k, which is unreal, so I just want to thank you all for helping me make my dreams come true. Please take care, don't forget to eat your veggies, and stay awesome. Bruh. Bye bye.